$17,584. Memorize that number. That is exactly how much American tax money evaporates into the jet stream for every single hour this machine stays in the air. The Boeing F-18 Super Hornet. Look at it. It is a masterpiece of American violence. It is built to scream at Mach 1.8. It is engineered to pull 7.5 Gs, crushing the pilot into the seat while tracking 6 targets simultaneously. It is the reigning heavyweight champion of the flight deck, designed for one purpose: air dominance. But if you look at the flight operations report for the USS Ronald Reagan or the USS George H.W. Bush right now, you will see a statistic that defies economic logic. 20 to 30% of every Super Hornet sortie flown today is not a combat mission. They aren't hunting MiGs. They aren't dropping JDAMs. They are flying in slow, lazy circles, thousands of feet above the ocean, with a rubber hose trailing out of their belly. We are taking a $70 million supersonic fighter and we are using it as a flying gas station. It is the strategic equivalent of buying a Ferrari F1 race car, ripping out the passenger seat, and using it to deliver pizza. It is an economic crime. It is a logistical nightmare. And to the accountants in Washington, it looks like insanity. But here on Navy Decoded, we don't look at the budget sheets. We look at the blueprints. And when you look at the blueprints, you realize that this waste isn't an accident. It is a desperate, calculated survival mechanism. We are burning the fatigue life of our premier fighter fleet. We are literally eating our own young because we have no other choice. We are fighting a war against an enemy that doesn't care about our budget. That enemy isn't a nation, it isn't a flag. The enemy is geometry. Today, we are going to tear apart the Flight Deck Operations Manual. We are going to look at the invisible walls that trap the US Navy. We are going to expose the kill box that stretches across the Pacific. And we are going to explain why the most powerful military on Earth is spending $7.8 billion on a Band-Aid to fix a mistake we made 30 years ago. If you want to know what actually keeps the fleet afloat when the shooting starts, hit that subscribe button. Welcome to the calculus of sacrifice. To understand why we are destroying our fighters in the air, you first have to understand the chaos on the ground, or rather, the chaos on the steel. The flight deck of a Nimitz-class carrier, 4.5 acres of sovereign American territory. Civilians see this deck and they see power, but the handler, the officer in the tower responsible for every inch of movement, sees a prison. Space here is the ultimate currency. Every square foot is calculated in blood and efficiency. If you misplace a tractor, you stop a launch. If you park a jet 3 inches over the foul line, you shut down the runway. It is a high-stakes game of Tetris played with 30-ton explosives. And in this game, there is one piece that ruins everything. The E-2D Advanced Hawkeye. The pilots call it the Hummer because of the sound of its twin turboprops. But the deck crews have a different name for it. They call it the Deck Clogger. Look at the dimensions. This is where the engineering friction begins. An F-18 Super Hornet has a wingspan of 44 feet 9 inches. It is sleek, it is compact. The Hawkeye? 80 feet 7 inches. Do the math. That is massive. Even with the wings folded, the Hawkeye is a brick. It is a monolithic block of aluminum that dominates the catapult track. When the handler spots a single Hawkeye on the catapults, he loses the real estate for 2 strike fighters. It is a geometric bottleneck. But the size is only half the problem. The real issue is that this aircraft is a prisoner of 1950s engineering. Modern jets like the F-18 or the F-35 are self-sufficient. The pilot climbs in, hits a switch, the APU kicks on, and the engines scream to life. They are autonomous. The E-2D is not. It lacks an onboard auxiliary power unit capable of engine start. It is helpless. To wake this beast up, the deck crew has to drag over a massive piece of support gear called a huffer, a mobile electric power plant. They have to physically drive this tractor to the aircraft, drag heavy umbilical cables across the non-skid, and plug it in. This creates a phenomenon called tethering. The E-2 cannot just be parked anywhere. It has to be parked within leash distance of a power hatch or a huffer cart. It becomes an anchor, a concrete block in the middle of a flowing river. And then there are the windmills of death. Those massive 8-bladed NP2000 propellers, when they start turning, they don't just move air. They slice through the safety protocols of the entire deck. The prop art creates a lethal exclusion zone. You cannot drive a tractor past it. You cannot walk past it. You cannot tow a fighter jet past it. When the Hawkeye turns on, the flow of traffic on the bow grinds to a halt. It severs the arteries of the carrier. So, the Navy developed a doctrine. It is brutal, but it is necessary. First off, watch any launch cycle. The first plane to shoot off the catapult is almost always the E-2. People think this is tactical. They think, oh, we need the radar up to scan for bad guys. That is only 10% of the truth. The other 90% is pure logistics. The handler kicks the Hawkeye off the ship first because he hates it. He needs it gone. He needs that 80-foot aluminum wall off his deck so he can actually start fighting the war. Until the E-2 launches, the carrier is clogged. Once it's in the air, the deck can breathe. The fighters can move. The war can begin. But once the deck is clear, the real nightmare starts. Because now, we have to look at the ocean. And the ocean has gotten a lot bigger than our missiles. We used to have an answer for the ocean. Go back to the 1980s. The deck of the USS Nimitz looked very different. It wasn't just Hornets, it was a zoo. We had the A-6 Intruder, a dedicated long-range bomber that could carry a massive payload. We had the K-6D, a dedicated tanker version that existed solely to feed the fleet. We had the S-3 Viking, the Hoover, a submarine hunter that doubled as an incredibly efficient gas truck. These aircraft were specialized. They were ugly, but they worked. Then the Cold War ended. The Soviet Union collapsed, and the Pentagon got arrogant. We looked at the budget and said, why do we need all these different planes? It's too expensive. Let's simplify. We retired the Intruder. We retired the Viking. We threw away the tools that gave us reach. We decided to build a homogeneous air wing. We bet the entire farm on one horse, the F-18 Hornet. We thought, the Hornet can do everything. It can dogfight, it can bomb, it can jam radars, and it can carry a gas tank. It was the doctrine of efficiency. And it worked, as long as we were bombing insurgents in the desert who had no navy and no air force. But efficiency is the enemy of effectiveness. While we were celebrating our savings, our adversaries were studying our math. They looked at our carrier decks, saw nothing but short-range fighters, and they started building a weapon specifically designed to exploit that arrogance.